Hello. This is Jonathan, and you're listening to the Johnny Talks podcast, the place where we help you achieve your financial goals. Hello, friends. Hope you're having a great day wherever you are, whether that's in Houston, Johannesburg, or Manchester. And if you're a new listener, I want to give you a special warm welcome to the show. Thanks so much for tuning in. I really appreciate it. And if you're a returning listener, welcome back. In today's episode, we will speak to my friend Joyce from the blog Financial Impulse. I met Joyce through the Fincon community, and I also met her last September in Washington, D.C. at the conference. Joyce writes about a wide array of topics on her blog. Topics vary from picking good companies to invest in, to career advice, debt, emergency fund, even cheap date IDs, etc. And next to those articles, she has also developed two interesting series of articles, Is It Worth It? And From Freelance to Full-Time, which I enjoyed reading myself as well. What I did not immediately know about Joyce is that she's a full-time digital marketer who specializes in SEO. SEO stands for Search Engine Optimization. In layman terms, and this is kind of a definition I made up, SEO is the process behind increasing the quality and the quantity of traffic to a website. For example, her blog Financial Impulse or my blog johnnytalks.com, and trying to get it ranked as high as possible in Google. We will discuss how she combines her professional career and passion project, the blog, combining on the one hand digital marketing with a focus on SEO and personal finance on the other hand with her blog. In the first part of the episode, she will provide some practical SEO tips which will be helpful for any type of content creator, bloggers, podcasters, YouTubers, or people like me that just suck at SEO. And in the second part, we will dive deeper into the personal finance part. This episode is for you if you want to start a blog or podcast YouTube channel and wonder about how to be easily searchable in Google. And as well, it is for you if you're looking at broadening your perspectives on personal finance. So without further ado, let's hear the interview. Hello, Joyce. How are you doing today?
I'm doing great. How are you doing, Jonathan?
I'm fantastic. Nice to speak to you after not seeing you for 3 months since we met at Fincon. So I hope you're doing well, and it's a pleasure to talk to you on the podcast.
Yeah, thank you so much for having me. And I'm glad we could finally get this set up since, it's been a little hectic trying to get it scheduled.
No worries. It happens. We're busy people, and we're not on the same time zone. So you are calling from Houston, right?
Yes, that's right. I'm in Houston, Texas.
Mm-hmm. And what are you doing in Houston?
So I'm actually a full-time digital marketer. I do content writing and SEO, but I actually work remotely. So my company is originally based in Taiwan. We have a few smaller branches. And so I have coworkers all over the U.S., Seattle and San Francisco, and in Taiwan still, of course.
Okay. That's interesting, and it's great that you can do it remotely from Taiwan. I mean, from Houston for a company in Taiwan. That's nice, and we will touch upon SEO a bit later on. But how I discovered you is through your website, Financial Impulse, and okay, I met you in person, but the key interest first was Financial Impulse. Can you tell us a little bit about this blog?
Sure. So Financial Impulse is basically all about personal finance content that I've always been curious or had questions about. And it's kind of funny because as a digital marketer, working in SEO is really what made me want to start Financial Impulse besides my interest in personal finance itself. Doing this kind of SEO work, I knew I wanted to continue learning and growing in it. And for me, there was no better way to do that than by starting my own site and experimenting with SEO myself. I've been reading personal finance content online for a couple of years now. I was first introduced to it through an old roommate, and he told me about that personal finance subreddit, and I just loved it. That's how I discovered all these blogs, and also famous authors like Ramit Sethi. Anyways, working in SEO kind of made me want to, toss my hat into the ring and start my own website, which is Financial Impulse.
Very good. Actually, it's great because actually your working as a professional with the digital marketing and SEO, but you're experiencing it yourself. So it really gives you an edge, I think, in your career, don't you think?
Yeah, I like to think of it as a professional side project. Really it's a passion project because
Hmm.
it's touching on my interest in both SEO and personal finance.
Okay. Is there one of those passion that tops up the other that you see yourself going more towards to in the future? Like, do you want to dive more into SEO or more into personal finance?
Ooh, I would absolutely love to dive into both, and probably digital marketing a little more, only
Hmm.
because I love personal finance and I appreciate the work done by financial planners and advisors, but I myself couldn't foresee becoming an advisor. However, I would want to continue doing marketing work. And on the topic of personal finance, I don't consider myself an expert. I find myself, or I call myself a work in progress. I'm still learning more and more about it every day.
Hmm. Yeah, and that's exactly what I wanted to ask you a bit because you started your blog, yeah, just over a year ago, and I was wondering about your experience. So, how has it been so far, and what kind of strategies or basic strategies of SEO are you using to help Financial Impulse?
Sure, yeah, it's been really great tracking the progress. It's kind of funny. I'm a little crazy about it. I have a spreadsheet where I look at the month to month traffic. All of this data is from Google Analytics, but I like to look at that growth. And it's really encouraging, to see what's working, like what months have seen bigger jumps. And sorry, you were asking about strategies, right? Basic ones to share.
Yeah, just basic ones. I mean, for because probably there are people listening, and they are interested into starting a blog or a website, and maybe if they have some key basics of SEO. And myself, as I told you, I suck at SEO. So if you have a few basics that could help both the listeners and myself, yeah, I think that will be helpful for me to get more viewers and listeners, and yeah, for the audience to also help them develop and start on the right foot.
Yeah, awesome. So first of all, I would, encourage readers who are interested in blogging or who have already started blogging to really think about their mission. Because there are a few different types of blogger. For example, there's someone who's blogging privately. It doesn't have to be anonymous, but they're blogging for themselves or for their friends and their family, and they don't mean for it necessarily to become public or get a lot of traffic. And then there's the other kind of blogger, which I think is a lot more common, and it's people who want to blog to make an income. They want to share their work, and there's nothing wrong about either route. I would say that I identify personally as the second kind, someone who does want to write so that other people can read it, and that's the whole point of SEO. So if you're, the first type of blogger, you don't really care about strangers reading your stuff, then you honestly don't need to worry about SEO, right? If it's for yourself, your blog is just for you, then search engine optimization should not be a concern.
Hmm.
But if you do want strangers, if you do want organic traffic to come across your website, I would really advise you to identify good keyword targets to create your content around. I've met a few bloggers and I spoke with a few who talked about SEO and described, writing their content first and then plugging in what they thought were relevant keywords after the fact. When really it should be bloggers should really focus first on a keyword and create content based on it rather than the backwards strategy of writing something and then plugging in what they think are relevant keywords.
I have a question, Joyce. So those keywords, where should I put them? In my title, in my text, at the end? Should I make a tag, like for example in WordPress, or how do you see that? For example, let's say I want to write about 5 ways to save money easily.
So in SEO, there's a distinction between short tail and long tail keywords. What the difference is that long tail keywords tend to be longer phrases. They're not determined by their length, but really the volume, the search volume that goes into each keyword. For example, you'd probably have more readers searching for a keyword phrase like save money versus someone searching for a phrase like save money by credit cards or something more specific, you know? So it's often a better bet for you to target that longer tail keyword because it'll be less competitive. You know, something more specific. For example, if you search something like how to save money into Google, you'll find that there are
Millions.
millions of results. But a more specific phrase, it'll probably be, you know, a couple 100,000 results.
Hmm. Okay. And any other kind of basic tips of SEO for SEO results? Yeah.
Yeah, so you asked about how frequently you should insert your keywords or where you should include them. And, you know, something that's really important to know is that Google does not like keyword stuffing. This is what's called a black hat SEO tactic. And what Google really prioritizes instead is that you use keywords naturally.
Hmm.
That's within your content and within your title. So you don't want, you know, save money over and over again in your content or your title. Instead, you'd want to use, right, a more natural sounding title like how to save money with these X tips,
Yeah.
X hacks. And that said, right, you just got to use keywords very naturally, incorporate them into your content organically. And also another spot is in your page URL, right? So, for example, financial impulse slash save hyphen money. So, I would recommend to readers to incorporate your target keyword phrase into the page URL, the page title, and your content. But all of this should be very natural. You know, you don't want to stuff it, or else Google will find your content to be very spammy and they won't want to rank that highly at all.
Okay. And I have a question for not CEO, SEO. What about links? I mean, can I just post anything, or should I have a lot of links to outbound? For example, if I write an article about the saving tip, should I have links to, for example, financial impulse that have also an article about 5 saving tips, or should I link to bigger guys like Forbes or CNBC or I don't know, the Telegraph in Europe? Does it have an influence on my SEO?
So outbound links to authoritative sources are definitely the way to go. That said, you know, Google wants to look at your anchor text as well as where the link is going. If you put anchor text that is irrelevant, you know, that doesn't match that page that it links to, that's going to look fishy, right? And that's what spammy websites typically do when they want users to click something. They're misleading users, right?
So you mean that, for example, if I put, I don't know what, gardening, I write gardening tools, but my link points to a shop that sells mobile phones, this is like a red flag for Google.
Yes,
Hmm.
yes. And this would be considered black hat SEO just because it's a deceptive practice. This is not honest or accurate linking. But as far as the link quality goes, you definitely should be linking to your good references, you know, high authority quality sites that have expertise.
Hmm. Okay, that's good. And so, how, for example, in your blog, what has been your journey with regards to SEO? I mean, obviously, you're doing this as a full time job, but how has your experience been for the blog?
So it's really early on in my blogging
Hmm.
journey so far. I'm a little more than a year in, but it's been a wonderful, really gratifying experience. So I've seen the organic traffic grow from just 3 users a month to over 1,000, and this is not not anything incredible, right? When you read about big SEO experts like Neil Patel and Brian Dean, but for a side project, I'm very pleased.
Yeah, absolutely. And were there some errors that you were making in the beginning that I think you started in December last year? Were there errors in the that you made and that you say, "Oh, come on, why did I do this?" Or yeah, or that you learn from yourself by doing.
Yeah, absolutely. I think if I could start again, maybe one thing what I would do differently is, create a backlog of maybe 4 or 5 posts and then start the site instead of what I actually did, which was start the site, publish one post, write another, and then publish that. And so the reason behind this, why it would have been better to just create a site and it already have 4 posts or 5 instead of just one, is that this would be better for getting users to stay on the page and on the website. Because hypothetically, as I think back on it now, if a user were to land on a website and it has only one page, they probably don't have much incentive to stay on it and they would just click away.
Correct.
So it would be better to, for anyone starting out to kind of make a whole string of posts. You don't need 20, but just enough, a few so that when a user stumbles onto your website, they'll
Hmm.
have more reason to stay, by looking at the related posts.
Yeah, and actually, it's the same tip with my podcast, for example, because when I released it early in October last year, I had 4 episodes. So it was a tip from others that I get as well. So it applies to podcasts and blogs, actually.
Oh, yeah, I'm sure, right? You get more people lingering and they want to check out all the other episodes, huh?
Yeah, correct. And Joyce, about your website, I've been, of course, reading a few posts, and I found it quite interesting. I really like it. It's quite diverse. There's a few you touch really upon several topics. There's one on how to pick a company to invest in. There's your 2 series. Is it worth it? Freelance to full time. So, and I think there's some on career advice, etc. So it's quite broad, a bit like mine actually. I like to touch upon several topics. What is the mission with your blog actually? Do you have a unique point of view, or are you still finding out, which is fine as well? Can you tell us a little bit about that?
I think I'm still really finding my own point of view in personal finance, but it's also funny trying out all these different topics to go after. And this is very much part of my SEO research and experimenting, like which topics is it easier to rank for, which topics are less competitive, and touching upon all of these different subjects that are all, loosely or even closely connected through money and career, you know?
And it's a bit what I do. So I don't know because I touch upon investing. I talk about lifestyle. I have a few. I've had a few fire people on the podcast. So it's all linked to money and lifestyle, how to use it, and it goes a bit beyond just budgeting and stock picking. So it goes broader than that. But sometimes I go a bit more technical on the money. So it really depends. But I like it like this. I mean, for me, it makes it fun, and it gives a lot of different traffic, I would say, but it's not niche. I have to say that. So I don't know if I'm having a right strategy here or not. And so maybe you can tell me about your findings on having a range of topics.
Sure. So I definitely don't think there's anything wrong with going after a broader array. And I also don't think there's anything wrong with going after niche topics. The only thing about focusing on a niche topic is that maybe you're going to find yourself really bound to it. And if you don't have that fire, that passion to sustain blogging about that one topic, it's really going to die out fast. There's only so much you can write about something that you're not really into, right?
Mhm. Because if I write all the saving tips for living in Houston, at some point, I guess even though there's a lot of commerces and shops and whatnot, and public services or whatever, at some point it dies out indeed. Yeah, it's a bit too niche maybe.
Yeah, exactly. And I think the thing about having a broader topic, well, you can just always keep going further in on all of these separate subjects, and depending on how big you want your site to grow, it's just possible that you can create all that content later on.
Hmm.
I I think of big websites like Student Loan Hero and NerdWallet, and they are niche to an extent, right? They're about personal finance, but they can also be quite broad themselves, right?
Hmm.
They cover a range of topics. And, it being just a little more than 1 year in on Financial Impulse, I would love for my site to grow to that level eventually, and
Hmm.
that's really bold and ambitious. But for now, I don't mind creating content on a range of different topics. It also means that I can not only experiment, but see what I like writing about, and then go from there.
Yeah, that's great, and it's a bit the same journey I have, and it's still a bit like this for now. So yeah, we'll see in the long run how it shows and if I will narrow down or not. But I like it like this because it gives me as well the opportunity to have several type of guests on the podcast and from US, from Europe, etc. I try to blend it in, try to make it interesting, and as well I'm interested in all those things. So I'm getting excited as well each time I get a new guest or that I hear a new perspective. So it's always great, and also it's good for the listeners, and then they can pick and choose whatever they prefer. And Joyce, on your website and Financial Impulse, you just launched two series that I really liked. Is it worth it? And freelance to full time. So maybe let's talk about the Is It Worth It series. I really liked it. For example, you had various articles, and for example, you made one on Fincon, and you also have one on LASIK. Can you tell us a little bit about those two topics?
Sure. And so also I'll talk about the series as a whole.
Mm-hmm.
So I started this series because I had all these questions about high cost products and experiences. In general, I was always wondering if they were worth their price. And I always wanted to get others to weigh in on these topics before I could actually, make a buying decision. And, these topics have included not just LASIK, but also coding boot camps and college. And these are all things that I have wondered about myself. So, for example, LASIK.
What is LASIK, Joyce?
LASIK is a type of laser eye surgery.
Mm-hmm.
So, people who are, who people who don't have perfect vision will get LASIK so that they don't have to wear contacts or glasses. And I actually got LASIK myself.
Ah, okay,
uh,
cool.
yeah, I started wearing glasses, I think when I was 9, just back in elementary school.
Mm-hmm.
So, had been wearing them and then contacts later on in high school for quite a while. And I'd always been curious about LASIK. But, as with many other health procedures, you got to wonder, is that safe? And then, what are the ramifications? And like, will I be blind? Especially something that is touching your eyes, right? Like a laser, that sounds scary.
Yeah, absolutely.
So I did some research and spoke to a variety of other people who had also gotten LASIK, and found that ultimately it's worth it. The technology has really improved over time. And if you just compare the cost of wearing glasses or contacts over your lifetime, LASIK is a much better investment, so long as you're okay with getting that procedure, which I'm sure a lot of people are uncomfortable with.
Yeah, and is it an operation that takes, for example, 15 minutes?
It's funny, it actually took 5 minutes per eye for
Yeah,
me.
wow, 5 minutes. Yeah, I heard something similar. So, yeah, it's very quick. And what is the cost of such an operation in the US? Or if you did it somewhere else?
Oh, good question. So it really varies around the world. And I actually got my procedure done overseas in Taiwan.
Okay.
And if I remember correctly, this cost me just around 3,000 total or just under it, USD. Uh, but in the US, if you were to get it, the price in 2017, this is the latest data I could find, it would be about $2,000 per eye. So you would really be spending over 4,000 for this.
Hmm. Okay. I think in Europe it's, I mean, at least in Luxembourg, I think it was around 3,000 euros. I have this figure in my head from other friends, but okay, this is a conversation I had with them, I don't know, 1 year ago. So I don't know if it's per eye or for the two. So just maybe it's maximum 6,000, minimum 3,000 euros for both eyes.
Right, and I've heard, it really could go as much as anywhere from 4,000 to 6,000 USD for both eyes. It's amazing how much it varies around the world.
Yeah, I know. And what about Fincon? Is it worth it, Joyce?
Yeah, absolutely. And I had just gone to my FinCon for the first time, but leading up to it, I always wondered, is this conference worth it? Like what would make this worth going to? It has kind of a high admission price, not to mention if you're not locally based, you also have to factor in the cost of transportation, like flying or driving to the location, and also housing,
Yeah,
right?
correct.
Um, and ultimately, I think FinCon is what you make of it. You can say that about so many different experiences, but for example, if you went to FinCon and you didn't talk to anyone, and you really didn't interact with the booths, if you went to one or two sessions, this probably wouldn't be worth it for you, right?
Hmm.
Because it is a conference after all, so it might as well have just been a trip to another city. However, it is what you put in. So if you really work hard at networking, talking to different brands there, and going to different sessions, you can get a lot out of it. And I also know that not every attendee even goes to the sessions. Some people just focus on the social events, which is also not bad at all. That's a way to get your money's worth, because otherwise, outside of FinCon, you don't have as much of an opportunity to interact with so many different personal finance bloggers and content creators.
Yeah, you're right. And I mean, for me, it was great because okay, I flew to US, so for me it was a big trip. But yeah, it was the chance to meet many people in 4 days, and yeah, so for me it was even more unique than you, because yeah, it was the chance. It was like yeah, let's meet in person and shake hands and make contact. So yeah, it was absolutely great. So for me, even though it was even more expensive than you, with the flights and everything, yeah, it was totally worth it. But okay, and as you say, it's what you make out of it. I mean, if I went there and talked to two persons and I didn't even talk to sponsors or to attend the booth, yeah, okay, then why do I need to go there? It's yeah, you need to go with a goal in mind.
Absolutely.
Great, great. And Joyce, yeah, I also saw that you launched on your website, as we mentioned, the Freelance to Full Time series. And I saw that you also interviewed Ryan, which also published a guest post on the blog on the Journey Talks. So how is that experience? Do you also do a Skype interview, or do you do that by email? How do you go on about it?
Yeah, so Freelance to Full Time is my newest series on my blog, and it's
Hmm.
just an email interview series. It's funny, the inspiration behind this was a book I read called Designing Your Life, which says that you should prototype different lives that you're, potentially interested in by speaking to others who are doing that kind of work.
Hmm. Yeah.
So, I do freelance work and have always wondered what is it like to, be a full-time freelancer. And really there are so many ways you can do freelancing full-time, right? All kinds of work. So it's been really fun talking to all these different creators A lot of creatives, like you mentioned, Ryan Scribner is a personal finance YouTuber, right? And he's just gotten so big in a short amount of time. But he's not the only one, right? There are so many other different kinds of creators. I spoke to an illustrator, and right now I'm working on putting together interviews for others who have gone full time with their freelancing work in, SEO or design work and even copywriting.
Hmm. Is that something you would consider yourself, Joyce, to go full time?
Yeah, I've actually always been curious about not even just freelancing full time, but being my own boss.
Yeah.
I love that
Hmm.
flexibility. So it's something I'm interested in deeply. And freelance to full time is a way for me to learn about the possibilities of working for yourself, what that's like, instead of just diving right in.
Hmm. Yeah, correct. So you experiment a bit. You see how it goes for you. If it's I think Ryan mentioned something like, yeah, if it's there's a proof of concept.
Hmm.
And then if it's not, if it's not working, then at least you know it, you tried it risk free, and then you can switch your approach or change totally business or industry. So that's a great way to start indeed.
Yeah, and it's so nice hearing from the experts or people who have actually gone out and done it first.
No, great. And yeah, Joyce, any other things you want to say about the website or anything else we should know?
So I don't consider myself a personal finance expert in any way, but I do have a solid understanding of the basics, and I'm always eager to keep learning.
Hmm.
I don't want to mislead readers or give poor advice. So when it comes to writing for Financial Impulse, I really value data and research. Because of this, I also am very active about getting quotes from certified financial professionals.
Yeah. Okay, I like that approach. And Joyce, for the readers, okay, you gave some practical SEO tips, and for myself as well. What about personal finance tips? Do you have any? Do you have 2 or 3 tips that you want to tell to the audience?
Yeah, one big tip, and it's funny because it's not even just for personal finance. It is that you don't always have to do what everyone else is doing. That sounds vague, so let me explain. But when when I was just done with college and had to pay back my student loans, instead of buying a car to get around in Houston, which, unfortunately doesn't have great public transit, I bought a motorized kind of scooter,
Mm-hmm.
and basically like a Vespa. It's actually technically a motorcycle, but 150 cc, not a big Harley by any means. But I use this as my way of getting around, and this cost me just a little more than 1,000. Filling up gas was so cheap, And the thing is, why you shouldn't care what others are doing. I feel like in this position, I could have gone right out and bought a car and be in even more debt,
Mm-hmm.
but instead going this other route, not caring what it looked like to others, I was driving this unusual vehicle. uh, it really saved me so much money and helped me pay off my loans way more aggressively. And you know you can apply this in so many different ways. For example, instead of renting, one of the best, most expensive apartments in a very hip part of town, you
Mm-hmm.
know, live somewhere further away in the suburbs, or even consider moving back home. It's okay if you're the only one who's doing it in your friend group, You don't always have to live according to what society says is normal, what your peer group says is normal. It's okay to deviate.
Absolutely, I totally agree with that. I mean, yeah, you don't need to follow the herd.
Yes, exactly. I like that analogy. That's funny.
Okay, that's excellent. Very good tips. And Joyce, so thank you so much for sharing your SEO tips and sharing some insights on your on Financial Impulse, your website. And before we head off, I always have 3 quick fire questions I ask every guest. So, number one, Joyce, what has been your best investment so far?
My best investment so far has been in my own health, and that's by, eating fruit and vegetables, reducing the amount of sugar intake, and getting regular exercise and sleep.
Okay, that's excellent, and it doesn't cost a thing.
That's right. And one of the best ways to reduce future healthcare costs in the future.
Yeah, absolutely. It's a very long-term approach. And yeah, excellent. I like that as well. And Joyce, what is your favorite book? And it does not need to be financial.
I really love the book Give and Take by Adam Grant. So, this book really emphasizes the importance of interactions and relationships, and just how achieving success doesn't necessarily come from being ruthless towards others.
Hmm.
You can get a lot from being altruistic.
Yeah, I agree with that. Yeah, absolutely. It's a bit like How to Win Friends and Influence People. I mean, the title is a bit misleading. I mean, the influence thing. But it's actually, yeah, being gentle, listening to others, trying to understand, etc. So I haven't read your book, but yeah, probably put it on my list again as well.
Okay, I definitely recommend it.
Yeah, great, great, great. Excellent. And Joyce, the third and last question. What is the best purchase you have made for under $100?
So this one is going to come a little bit out of left field, but last year I bought a Wacom graphics tablet for about $50. It was off of Amazon Prime as a part of Prime Day.
Mm-hmm.
And this is random, but I've always loved art. And as a kid, I even said I wanted to be an artist when I grew up. That didn't happen. But, I realized as an adult, oh, wow, I have the means to pursue this interest, this hobby on my own. And now that I have this tablet, it's really become an amazing source of therapy where after a work day or just whenever I have free time, if I want to doodle or draw something, I'll do that.
Okay, so it's a tablet you connect to your PC, or is it just a tablet on its own?
Oh, that's right. It's a tablet connected to the PC
Yeah, okay,
with
so
a little.
you draw on it and then it appears on your screen and then, okay, then you let your creativity flow.
Yes, that's right.
Okay, excellent, excellent. Looking forward to see any art pieces that you will create, Joyce.
Thanks.
Very good. Thank you again so much for sharing your tips and your stories on your blog. Joyce, how can the listeners find you actually?
So listeners can follow me on Finance Impulse on Twitter or just by going to www.financialimpulse.com.
Okay, excellent. And I'm sure many will come and read your wide array of topics.
Thank you. And thank you so much for having me.
Yeah, it was a pleasure as well to reconnect with you. So, Joyce, we'll stay in touch and I wish you a pleasant day further.
Awesome. Thank you. And to you too.
I hope you enjoyed this episode and that you learned something from it. As a content creator, I certainly did. And here are my key takeaways. So the first one is that if you're already passionate about your full-time job, why not look at a side project / passion project, as Joyce calls it, that you could develop on your own. This can be a great way to give you an edge in your career, test the waters, develop skills, and potentially go from a part-time project to a full-time one. Next, here are some SEO tips I jotted down during the interview. Number 1, create good content around solid keywords. Don't do it the other way around, where you start writing something and try to stuff your article with the keywords. Second point, do not overstuff your article with the keywords. This will look weird or fishy to Google. Try to use them naturally in your text, in your header, etc. The third important point on SEO is to use long-tail keywords, to be more specific. If you want to know more about long-tail keywords, I've linked to an article written by Neil Patel in the show notes. Number 4. When using links, always link to high-quality websites or authoritative sources. And last but not least, on the topic of SEO, if you're about to start up your blog, your website, even podcast, as I mentioned, try to have a few posts ready if it's a blog, or try to have a few episodes if it's a podcast. And now, moving on to personal finance, I really liked Joyce's personal finance tip. Do not follow the herd, make your own choices, and do not be afraid to deviate from what everybody else is doing. You don't have to live in the city center, live further away. Maybe that's a better financial solution for you. Drive a scooter instead of a car. You don't have to follow what everybody else is doing. And here comes my last key takeaway for today. Go and read Joyce's blog. It's full of useful and fun stuff. So that was it for today. Thank you so much for listening. It really means a lot to me. Make sure you subscribe in Apple Podcast. And of course, please do not hesitate to contact me. If you have any questions or feedback, send me an email, john@johnnytalks.com, or connect through social media at Johnny Talks on Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram. And amigos, once more, thanks so much for listening, and I'll speak to you next time.